now live, and everything you say can be used against you, as it will be posted on the internet.
Wow. I literally just pushed the button. I saw the toaster pop up from YouTube a second after. Instant notifications, how nice.
But since somebody noticed what was in the background, I figured I'd turn it on so it would light up a little.
If you add one or two more of us as moderators, we can do some video switching while we play along here.
Let's see, where's the setting for that?
I don't know, probably in the left sidebar somewhere.
Let's see, I can draw.
There's probably there's a control room button and it's probably hiding in there.
I think I just did something.
Yeah, that worked. And that way, if people join and don't have their mics muted, we can cut them out, which is always nice too.
So since my success at Homebrew Website Club meetings has been limited, would somebody who has attended a meeting that has lasted for more than 1 week?
Oh, no, here's your good chance. All you got to do is introduce yourself and what you're working on.
Let me find the how to introduce a Homebrew Website Club wiki page. I'm sure it's there somewhere.
/ Homebrew Website Club with underscores. Skim down to the broadcast section.
Let's see, semi-monthly meeting. Monthly meeting, getting started. Past meetings beforehand, set up. Here we are. Take turns with the microphone 1 to 2 minutes on. If this is your first time, introduce yourself, name, URL, what you'd like to do next with your personal site, something new you created on or for your personal site since the last time you attended, questions about anything you are stuck on about your personal site, notable indie web / own your data related press and events. Okay. Hi, I'm David, and I'm an indie webaholic.
Hi, David.
That's how it works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my site is david.shansky.com. That's SHANSKE. I couldn't remember where the little thing that did the lower third was, so I didn't put one up. I know there's one there somewhere. So right now, my site is running WordPress, which at least one person in the room won't boo. Always good. And I continue to try to do new things with it. For about a year now, I've been trying to update the code that sets location for my site, because I think location is visually appealing when you're going somewhere interesting. And I have committed in my 2017 commitment to finish at least something of that before the end of this calendar year. I also do some other stuff too, but not all of it is successful.
You're too modest. You're too modest.
On some days, yes, and on some days, no. Anyway, I'm going to relinquish the floor to somebody else.
Oh, I'll go next. I'm Chris Aldrich, calling in from Los Angeles. Where about a month ago we had the first, pseudo-technically first indie web camp in LA. My website is
How did it go, by the way?
Buffo. It went pretty well. I was impressed. A pretty good turnout. We're slowly growing, even despite our big disparate area that's apparently almost as large as the Netherlands. And I think a lot of people got some good stuff done. And I think at least 3 people left with websites that didn't have them previously, or significant jumps on websites that had been long dormant. So mine is buffosacco.com. And I think one of the, let's see, I can maybe share my screen, it says. Yeah, let's do that. So in the last week, I've been trying to slowly own a lot of more knucklehead data that I post to random, not quite so big social media silos. So I consider the big ones like, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. But I'm slowly owning everything that I post to Goodreads.com recently. And I thought I would try to pick up more stuff in terms of what I'm actively reading online. So there's a nice little app called reading.am with a little bookmarklet. And you literally click it as you're reading an article to indicate that you're reading it right now in real time. And despite the fact that I'm not a big fan of Pesos workflows, I did find an easy way with an if this then that script to scrape the RSS feed out of reading.am and post in almost near real time onto my site exactly what I'm reading in the minute that I'm reading it.
I don't mean to interrupt, but as long as you're sharing your screen, would you share something other than
Then you? Yeah. The infinite you. So the best part is that earlier this week I found this nice little WordPress plugin. It takes the trigger from if this then that posts and will modify post formats and post types. I still have to adjust it a little to work with Mr. Shansky's post kinds plugin. But by adding a quick category to things that I'm reading, typically I use the if this then that link. So I just throw that into the recipe as a category, and it automatically presets the proper post type on my site to throw what I'm reading up, which has been, it's a small, stupid little thing, but fun and entertaining, particularly if you're doing a lot of automatic posting for things like I'm starting to look at posting what I'm listening to on an active basis. And so something like this to internally set post types is just phenomenally useful, I think. So there's my end. I'll let, I don't know, who else have we got? Asher, I think, is hiding in here. And Michael, either of you want to jump in, or I think Aaron is quietly hiding in the background.
Hi, I'm Michael Bishop. Actually, I'm not muted, am I?
Nope. Yeah, we got you.
All right. I My URL is miklb.com. I'm currently running it on Jekyll. It is kind of a convoluted workflow. I have web mentions, I have micropub working, but the micropub sends a markdown file to GitHub, and then I have Travis run a build on that, and then that gets pushed to my VPS, and then any metadata that comes through on that triggers another build to send more back to the site. So it's kind of this convoluted workflow, and build times, for whatever reason I haven't been able to figure out, can take over 10 minutes to build. So it kind of loses the real-timeness of wanting to have communications and Twitter. So then what I wind up doing is sometimes posting on Twitter and then doing real-time conversation there. And I'm not happy with it. Not to mention, I feel like it's all put together with duct tape and a prayer. So I'm slowly working on helping bring back a blogging platform that I had worked on in the past called Habari. It's PHP based and has kind of an agnostic database, so I can do SQLite if I want, or MySQL, however it works. So that's kind of what I've been working on slowly, is make an attempt to migrate away from the static blogging back to dynamic blogging, so that I could have a little more control over what I'm doing and a little more real-time feedback with the site. That's kind of my focus. I'm really excited about doing the virtual Habari, or I'm saying Habari instead of Homebrew Web Club. I live in Florida, kind of stuck out in the middle of nowhere, and haven't met anybody in the area interested. So thanks for putting this together. And
Most welcome.
Hello, I'm Aaron, aaronpk.com or aaronparecki.com, and now also w7apk.com. That's my new website. That is my call sign for ham radio, which has been fun. And I made that a couple days ago, trying to mimic the style of other ham radio websites. Because I noticed that everybody's ham radio websites kind of got stuck in the early 2000s web design style. Fun to not worry about anything and just write content and put pictures on the page, kind of like old web again. So it's been kind of fun. I eventually do want to get like web mention and micropub set up on it, but in the meantime, I'm just documenting stuff that I'm doing on the radio on that website. I also really want to post reviews on my regular website, and today I did a bunch of research into the Amazon review creation UI, and I wrote that all up on the wiki on the Amazon reviews page. And it was really interesting to see how they make it super easy for people to create reviews and make it not intimidating. So I'm going to take some inspiration from that and build an interface into Quill for doing reviews, which will then post an H review via micropub. So that'll be fun to get that working.
I have a quick question for you, Aaron, because I looked at it a couple months ago. Google usually seems to prefer schema.org markup.
Yeah, Google's an interesting one. So yeah, obviously one of my goals is I want the reviews to show up on Google with their little stars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I went and I found the Google Docs about reviews, and it's funny because they don't mention microformats anymore. They used to mention microformats. One with HReview as a way to actually do it. They still consume it because CYSkey demonstrated that his new pages are still getting crawled for that.
Yeah.
But if you look at their documentation, they actually have 3 ways to use schema.org vocabularies in markup in various ways that they have changed their mind about over the course of the years. So it started with, they started recommending, let's see if I can find the docs again. They started recommending microdata, which is the item scope, item type, item prop stuff. They eventually abandoned that for RDFA, which uses attributes called property and type of. And now they're switching to JSON LD, where it's no longer adding stuff to the markup, but there's a new script tag that goes into your HTML with a JSON blob in it. And it's kind of weird because it means it's a totally separate chunk of code you have to include in your page. We saw this a long time ago it was called XML data islands. And now apparently we have JSON data islands. And I'm pretty sure that in a couple of years, they're going to realize that's a terrible idea and move to something different. So I'm not sure which of these three I'm going to do for Google, or whether I'm going to just use the old Microformats 1H review. So we'll see where I end up on that. But in the meantime, I'm also going to convert this all to Microformats 2 for my storage and for Quill.
Hilarious. Hilarious. That must have been Shansky. So who else is it?
I just heard silence and thought I should fill it.
That's your intro, Asher, if you're listening and paying attention.
That's a better intro.
Or maybe not.
Okay, enough with the sound effects.
Well, Asher, if you're there, or anybody else can join us. Feel free. But I guess this puts us into the second half.
We just wanted to quickly say hello. This is Homebrew Website Club Baltimore. We already did our demos and such, so those are online in the notes on the Indie Web event, the HWC event.
Good evening, Baltimore. They look like they're still having fun there. What was the second half again? Isn't this where we're supposed to do the group photo?
We can. I would do it with the screenshot myself, but for some reason I can't see my own video. And I'm presuming it's catching me, but I just can't see it on my end for some reason.
No, I don't see your video either.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is. I've tried turning it off and turning it back on, and yeah.
Well, there's
that
stock photo of you.
There's a stock photo, which is almost as good, I guess. It cuts way down on my bandwidth, I guess, if you're not actually seeing an actual picture. But if that's the case. Although I was gonna say the other option too. David, you're so far over. Even if I do a screen capture, you gotta like center yourself in the middle of your video stream there.
Better?
Oh, that's a little better. And it'll look like we've got way more people if we do. Who should we have in the main screen? Baltimore or David?
Not me.
Not you? Okay. We'll feature Baltimore, so everybody in Baltimore do a big wave and something and
You want me to make it look like I have more people here?
yeah. No, I think there's enough of us at the moment. See how we can get a full window. Okay. All right. Oh, I don't know. That'll come out okay. Okay enough, I guess, as a photo. We'll be okay. All right. And then what comes after our photo? Well, I say
The Homebrew Website Club peer-to-peer. Encourage everyone to find others they heard in the process of the previous half hour that were interested in similar topics. Help newcomers with getting started with their personal sites, hopefully even logging into the wiki and adding themselves to the RSVP section for the meeting. Then, if you forgot to take a group photo or if anybody new showed up, use the end of the peer-to-peer session as an opportunity to take another group photo. After which, clean up and meeting closure. Get everyone to help clean up and leave the meeting space cleaner than when they found it. Encourage folks to continue discussion at nearby pub or cafe and get food or drink too. I'm moving ahead in the itinerary.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm one step ahead of you there.
Okay.
Well, I've always been curious about the microformats 2 versus schema stuff, and I meant to try some tests with reviews. In microformats too, but I wasn't even sure that Google consumed them. And
I don't think Google consumes microformats 2 right now, but it looks like they're still consuming 1 because there's a lot of stuff out there that still produces microformats 1.
Yeah, I know there's a bunch of plugins even on WordPress that do it. I think somebody a while back built a review plugin for Known that I think did at least MF1 markup, if not both 1 and 2. Although I think it's kind of oddly silly if Google doesn't consume all of the above just for the sake of the fact that they can do it. And it shouldn't be that hard, honestly, for them.
Yeah, I mean, once there's enough sites producing microformats 2 reviews, then they'll have to start consuming them too.
But I also know a handful of people who build pro sites that put out that kind of. Usually, the ones that I know prefer the schema.org stuff, and I think they're building typically in Drupal. But
Google's all doubling down on schema. You kind of have to do that for now.
Yeah, but I think the amount of extra hits and traffic that they get for some of these bigger high-end commercial sites by adding that markup really makes a huge difference in their commercial business.
Mm-hmm.
For my own small, tiny personal website, it probably doesn't amount to a hill of beans. You know, who wants to read a review of, the 5,000th review of the movie Fletch? But, okay.
Well, the interesting thing for me is that I end up
Fletch information.
Well, I end up reviewing some like really obscure products, so there actually aren't even that many reviews on Amazon for them.
Yeah.
And people typing into Google may actually see my review when they search for it that way.
Yeah.
So I do want the little stars to show up.
Yeah. Well, it's always nice to have that extra metadata. I think even Tontech was showing us a separate search. I think it was a non-Google search because Google had started screwing up some of the metadata from even books that he was reading. So his site was actually showing emoji that kind of added some fun additional stuff when it showed up in search. That makes search a whole lot more fun, which I think is half the battle. Does Amazon accept API ported data for reviews for Posse?
No.
I doubt it.
I can't imagine
I
they
do.
did. Meant to look into
I do have
it.
a profile page, so I could at least potentially Pesos them.
Yeah, I've been manually posseing both to there and to Goodreads for book reviews that I've been doing for the last couple months. When I bother to write book reviews, but it would be nice
I think
to.
I'm fine just manually copy and pasting for now, honestly.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
given
review
the
enough stuff to automate it.
yeah, I don't think I do either. Although I imagine there's a big market out there for book bloggers that might find it useful. But I think even at that, I've only seen one kind of book blogger plugin for any platform anywhere that adds schema.org markup. In fact, I'm trying to get them to open source their code so that I can put in microformats 1 and 2. But I haven't done that, so many things to work on, so little time.
Amen.
So how's locations going, David?
Well, I have a screenshot if you give me a second. I can show you what it looks like, what the interface I've been working on looks like right about now. Let me see if I can get that up. 1 second. I will put it into the chat.
Oh, that's right. You're using 2 separate laptops for.
No, I'm using my desktop. I try
Okay.
to not use the laptop too much. That's just what the video is on.
Yeah.
So that's the new version there. And just for the record, in case anybody is curious, no, that is not the current location I'm at.
Oh, where did you put it up at? I had not seen it for some reason.
I put it into the
Into the
RC chat.
Okay. There's too many. I got too many chat windows. It's kind of sad. You mean you're not using the Singapore workaround? Apparently, that's the big thing lately. That's apparently the big thing on Instagram lately, is to post your photos and say that they were taken in Singapore, in the city of Singapore, in the country Singapore. And apparently, you get way more traction through their algorithm as a result of it.
Well, actually, I was just trying to find a notable site location that I actually had coordinates for.
That's a good one.
Sorry, the echo went off and was telling me how to get somewhere.
Yeah.
But either way, if you saw the screenshot, you can see exactly which coordinates I was able to locate.
That's actually not too bad. That's a huge amount of data, actually. I figured you were just going to do latitude and longitude.
Oh, I did. That's
Call it a day without all the address and city and town.
Well, the design is actually very different than the old version, but the other stuff is actually being pulled in automatically based on the coordinates. So that lookup button actually just took this latitude and longitude and generated the location description for display, which is up at the top, as well as the other categories.
I haven't used it in a while. Doesn't I think WordPress.com has some kind of geolocation stuff built in, but I haven't seen any of it on the .org side.
There isn't. None of that stuff has been updated in years.
Yeah.
So I'm working on a version that can be installed anywhere.
How are we getting our? Oh, did you join us, Asher? Are you here? I hear a echo, and I have a feeling it's coming out of his microphone.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mute myself.
No.
People tell me I forget to turn the mute button on my body all the time.
Well, if you want, Asher, go ahead and tell us who you are and what you're up to lately.
Hi, so I'm Asher. I have finals right now, but I wanted to try this virtual hangout thing, so here I am. But I haven't been able to really work on anything lately.
No. Have you made any progress since Indie Webcamp?
Not particularly. I don't think my website's working at all again. So yeah, I have to get it together. But I'll do that next week.
Yeah, that's what vacation's for, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Michael, how you decided what platform to move to escape the constant build issue.
Well, like I said, I had been involved with Habari from early in its development. It was started by some guys who were early WordPress developers, and without getting into, nobody wanted to fork anything. We just wanted to kind of create another option for blogging without building in the entire kitchen sink, and without being, kind of strapped with old legacy code. So that's kind of where it came from. And the UI is really clean on the back end. I mean, we're trying to, like I said, it's a slow process right now. It's just me and one of the other core developers trying to get it kind of kick-started again, so to speak. But we want to make a more mobile-friendly admin, but that wouldn't really be as important if I can get MicroPub, baked into it, or at least a plugin. The concept behind it was to be a blogging platform with the extensibility to kind of build whatever you wanted to do with it, as opposed to the kitchen sink, like I said. I mean, I do WordPress work professionally, but it's just a little too unwieldy for me for a personal site. And that's kind of it. I mean, so once I decided that, doing everything with Jekyll was great. I started doing this roughly in February of this year. I mean, I've had a blog for a long time, and I've been looking at things for IndieWeb, but finally kind of pulled the trigger and switched away from Habari back to to Jekyll, and have been able to do a lot of really neat stuff, and I've learned a lot. I just, like I said, for what I want to accomplish personally, I think it's time to start the next phase. A little more control over what the code is. I'm not really a Node developer at all. So that's what the MicroPub endpoint that I'm working with, that Voxpelli developed, which it's a really cool tool. But like I said, for me wanting to do more real-time kind of updates, that's where I just feel like I've hit a wall with doing more IndieWeb stuff. And yeah, that's kind of just where I'm at with it. I mean, it's going to be a slow process. but isn't everything. I mean, like I said, it took me from, I mean, I probably started looking at things. I don't know where I even stumbled into the wiki, and then started reading some of the other people that were, I think, well, I'm not even sure where I stumbled in from what direction. But then, like I said, finally I pulled the trigger in roughly February to get going. So
Yeah.
come pretty far in 9 months, but now I'm ready to take it to another level.
I know there's one of the pages I was looking at the other day had a comparison of kind of static sites versus dynamic, and it seemed like the community was fairly split evenly between them. But I don't know that there was even a section on kind of the pros and cons of some of the things like real time versus not quite so real time. I wish I could remember what the page was, because that would be a useful thing to document, I think.
I think one of the parts of it is that I mean, if you wanted to run a static site on your own VPS, like if you're using one of the other one, like, you know, I went Jekyll, and then I've kind of been bolting on parts as I was, you know, learning more and picking more up. With the micropub that, you know, that Voxpelli had, it pushes the markdown files to GitHub, and then with all the other, you know, steps that I have, and then I've got 11 years of cruft floating around in my website. I have the, you know, tag soup going on old posts, and, you know, 600 posts, and it just is kind of built up. And so all of the things going on, I've found the build times to just grown and grown and grown. So, you know, even with, you know, on Travis, you know, a deploy might take 10, 11 minutes. So that's where I've kind of hit that. If I'm just writing a blog post, or if I'm, you know, occasionally just, you know, doing a quick note of something that's on my head, that's not that big of a deal. It's if I want to get into more of the conversational types of things to keep all that content on my site, that's where, you know, and I may find that doesn't work any better on the, you know, more dynamic site. That'll be something to you know, to be determined. And I'll start out. I mean, I don't know if anybody has any feedback on that either. If they've had any experience with being able to do more real-time conversations from their site with a silo.
Not me,
Hey,
but I'd
I
like
just
to.
wanted to mention my plan for my site was to do like a combination. So I'm using this thing called Frozen Flask, which is like an extension for Python Flask, which is the server framework, and it allows you to handle static files. So both, where you can write to static files, but it's also a dynamic server, so it can pull in comments and such. I'm hoping to do is be able to edit the static files and get the dynamic components. Also,
That would be ideal. I mean, I would love to be able to. I mean, I've found actually Ben Balter that works at GitHub and does a lot of Jekyll project work and used to do WordPress stuff. There's actually a WordPress plugin that you can push markdown files to GitHub, and they'll sync to a WordPress database. And then you can do kind of version control over that. And I looked at that, but again, there was a lot of moving parts going on that I wasn't sure would, you know, using GitHub as the heartbeat of a site. I think I've kind of moved past. I mean, I'll put code up there, and I may, you know, dump static files. I'm all for that. But as far as using that as the centerpiece of building my sites, that's where I've kind of moved away.
Yeah. I don't know. I almost feel like I rely a lot on posseed versions of content And but more people tend to interact with my content in places like Facebook or Twitter. So it's nice to lean on them a little bit for some of that real-time notifications, whereas things like Bridgie don't always necessarily scrape as quickly, and for obvious reasons. But it's nice to have those as secondary, almost immediate notifications, either for cellular, mobile notifications, or not in real time, and then I can respond almost immediately, which has been pretty useful. But I also have gotten to the point too now where, especially even within the community, I almost wish I had a list of everybody who has things like web mentions set up or not set up, and do they moderate their web mentions or not, to know whether they saw something. But it has been kind of an interesting change in how I use the web, in kind of that indie web way. But I'm still a few years off before I build a mobile version that does text messaging or XMPP or something. That'll be the next missing piece, I think, after even dynamic web pages. What are you working on there, David?
Oh, I just noticed a problem when I took that screenshot.
It's always the case. Well, has anybody got any questions or problems or issues? Got an awful lot of brain power here.
Daddy.
So is there anything else we want to discuss on our agenda?
As I was looking at your screenshot, I was actually curious, are you doing a separate I saw venue sitting under your posts menu with
Well, if you
categories and tags.
if you actually look, those will be hidden. That's for debugging. But if you actually look at the screenshot, there's a notation. It's grayed out right next to the blue clear button that says "Save as venue."
Yeah. Okay. No, as I like the concept of having that, venues kind of not hidden over there, which is entertaining. But I had a feeling it was something you were hide.
It's that's what's been stalling me for a while now. So I'm doing the other part of it to get that updated, and I'm not sure if the venue part will be done by the end of the year. But the idea is that this is what it would look like if you weren't creating a venue. It would basically use the data at the top.
Yeah.
And then if you're creating a venue, you could save the entire more detailed version. Whereas previously you were saving the entire more detailed version inside every post.
Yeah.
David, are you
So it
using
is a-
taxonomies for that, or are you doing a custom
There-
table?
No, it's a taxonomy.
It is a taxonomy.
I started it the day that they released taxonomy term metadata.
Right. Cool. I think that's probably been one of the most difficult things to wrap my head around, is not wanting to make everything its own custom post type, whether it's with if it was with WordPress, or if it was with, even with Jekyll, you can do collections, which are posts is the base collection, but you can have collections of anything. And my inherent nature was always to want to make note a particular post type, and article is the main post type, and adding on, and it seems that that's the opposite of what the kind of the wiki suggests. And I'm just curious, I would be curious how other people have kind of crossed that path.
I'm not sure if I have that much to add, because I have an existing system that I have to work within, whereas many people didn't have that kind of restriction.
Was there a pre-existing WordPress plugin that does any kind of location stuff at all? That's even remotely close to this?
No,
And or could you abstract this out so that this could become that kind of standalone kind of post type data container, and then add on top of it the IndieWeb veneer to have the IndieWeb portion of that
that's the way
add
it's
to? Yeah.
that's the way it's designed now.
Okay.
This is designed to be a standalone plugin that would link into other code in order to add the other functionality, which is check-ins. So venues, I don't consider to be a inherently IndieWeb concept in terms
Yeah,
of
just
being.
database. So,
Yeah, so basically, once this is done, it will link into everything else, but by itself, it'll just allow anybody who wants to add a location to a post or any other type to just do it.
yeah.
And I try to design things that way because I figure even if people don't care about what I care about, at least they can derive benefit.
Yeah. Well, particularly even if you're just using the location stuff and it's got the micro format stuff wrapped around it,
Oh, that's embedded in already.
you know, because then they get all of that extra stuff that a lot of people wouldn't even think to add it.
That will be built in because it won't affect the user experience of somebody who isn't concerned about it.
Yeah. They'll never see it, never know it's there, but get the benefit of the free ride anyway. And I see also in your sample too, you've got an override default time zone. Is that some other separate plugin you're using, or is that something that's
built in, but the original version had that particular setting elsewhere. I sort of put it into the publish box.
Yeah.
And one of the possible features is stealing some code from Aaron that takes the location and generates the time zone.
Okay. That way, if you're traveling while you're posting your location, it just happens automatically.
Well, I actually have posts on my site that do that now. I can show you the place that I found that particular set of coordinates would have been a post that I made on June 10th, 2015, which has location. But if you actually go to that post and look at the date, by the way, I'll put that in there, into the IRC, you'll see that the actual time is listed in IDT as opposed to EDT.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that picture.
Well, that's where I found the coordinates for that particular location.
Yeah.
But if you notice, the actual generated text is different because my live site is still using the older version of the plugin that I want to actually get rid of.
Yeah. Huh. And what are you doing? And the other thing I noticed too is that particular post, you have it set up as a photo, since that's the kind of main setup. Have you thought of, and I think somewhere maybe in chat you had mentioned multi-kind posts for things that are, photos and check-ins or, I don't know where there's check-ins typically are usually the one place that I can think of that it kind of almost makes sense that it's a dual kind post, but.
Well, the multi-kind is something of a problem because of design, but it's still listed as an issue under the stuff I support. I haven't rejected the idea of doing it. It just everything else isn't working to the point at which I want to try that one.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I'd put down the list too. Typically, I just throw in a tag that says check-in or something like that, and use tags as a means of keeping track of that as data. Because I seriously doubt, as general data, it's the kind of thing somebody's really gonna, I don't think anybody really cares where I am to that level, except maybe my mom, and she's never gonna log in and check it to use it as a piece of functionality. So,
well, in my case, the only places that you routinely see me posting a location from is where I think somebody might actually care where the picture was taken, or where I'm talking about. So here I happen to be talking about a place that I thought people would be interested in seeing a map of.
Yeah, for a while I was kind of using a workflow with OwnYourGram because it threw in the geo coordinates, and I was almost using that as a preferred method of checking into places, even over Foursquare, because it did a better job, or it did as good a job of the kind of the location stuff most of the time. I mean, Instagram has its own location problems, I think, but you get a better photo and other kind of additional data that goes along with it over and above what Foursquare typically provides.
Well, for me, I'm trying to produce that so it's completely self-contained within a WordPress site.
Yeah.
Admittedly, the data is coming from other sources.
Yeah.
And the entire source thing is abstracted. I could, if I wanted to change the map provider to, let's say, Atlas.
Yeah.
Let's see if I got a comment from Aaron. Then I could do that, and it would just require one configuration change to switch between them. There's no user interface for that right now, but it was set up so I could change data providers without actually changing the interface.
That's smart. That also lets you do things like, or even with the kind setup, because you can have kind of an archive view of all of your photos, but then you could also separately do an archive view of all your locations.
Well, basically, because Venue is set up as a taxonomy, what's going to end up happening is you could actually, when you go to a Venue view, it'll actually be an archive view of the usage of that taxonomy.
Yeah.
So somebody will be able to look at all entries made at a specific point.
That way they know when you went out for coffee in the morning, and that's the best time to wrap your desk in aluminum foil.
Quite possibly. Whenever somebody says, when did I go out for coffee, since I don't drink, I just use Aaron's list.
Yeah.
Aaron's list cup of coffee was at 9:23 a.m. this morning, Pacific. He's had, let's see, he's had on average 2 cups of coffee per morning for the last few days, alternating with beer and cocktail.
Oh,
sounds about right.
I always do my beers and cocktails in the morning too.
No,
I just don't.
No, those aren't in the morning.
I just don't keep track because people might have issue with me as a result.
No, it goes coffee, coffee, beer, beer, cocktail, coffee, coffee, beer.
Yeah. Well, I haven't tried Teacup with WordPress in a while with MicroPub. I think the last time I tried it 8 or 9 months ago, for some reason I couldn't get it working.
There's one stretch of custom code in Postkinds that actually does now save the summary and set the type correctly, but it doesn't
Yeah.
go beyond that. It was just basically a placeholder to make sure that it would technically work.
Oh, okay. When did you add that piece?
I actually remember exactly when somebody was at Indie Webcamp saying that they're using Teacup and it wasn't working properly, and I just sort of added in a shim
Yeah.
to make sure it would work. And I'll get back to it at some point, but there were other things on the list.
Yeah, because I'm thinking after the new year, I've been working on all the stuff that I've been reading and keeping track of that. And I've been pecking away a little bit at things that I'm listening to, or the concept of scrobbling. And then I think after that, things I'm eating or drinking may make sense, in which case then something like Teacup in particular.
I don't know. I considered doing it privately just to drive myself crazy about what I've been eating.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too, is I would do it as a private post, so that I have the data for myself to analyze on the back end, and then when I look at why I weigh 40 pounds more than I should after the holidays, I'll know exactly why. And
I'm just worried about posts. Not that I really do it, but I'm worried about posts that say ate entire pizza. You should be
Yeah.
ashamed of yourself.
you could have a separate post type for that if you needed to.
What the shame post type?
Yeah, the shame post type. Obviously, it's a good idea because Aaron just laughed. I think he already has that as a post type on his site, and we just can't see it yet.
Oh. I
Or I
usually
guess it-
figure that if I had an idea, that Aaron has not only had the idea, but implemented it at least 2 years ahead of me.
Oh yeah. Although I think is it emotion? Is that the other kind that's hidden in there for Ashton that you did?
Feel, I think it was.
Or feel, maybe? Okay.
Yeah,
So
actually,
you could
several of them were hidden for that reason.
Yeah.
That somebody wanted them, but I really wasn't ready to experiment with what the interface would be like. So I just sort of held the term.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing I noticed too, is I think even in code, you've got way more types than even physically show up.
Yeah, there's a blacklist in the code that deliberately hides the ones for which
That are-
there's no functionality, but as I said, I wanted the word there.
Yeah. I think I went in and started looking at it the other day to add, because I wanted to add something. And it may have been when I mentioned location a few weeks ago, the beginning of December, to you. Because I think I've got a handful of posts where it's just location, or I was using something like
Well, there is a check-in type, and it's deliberately coded to only be enabled if you have both plugins installed.
yeah.
So there were a few things I set up like that, and that was the idea, that some things would depend on other functionality and wouldn't show up on the possible list.
Yeah. Well, that's smart.
And some, if you see more on my screenshot, it's because I also have coded that if it's in debug mode, that it will actually unlock a bunch of things that most users would not touch.
Yeah. Oh, I saw that in there. I keep meaning to, on my test side, I think I need to actually throw that flag so I can see some of that stuff.
Nothing
Keep
really
forgetting
exciting.
to do that.
You'd be able to edit kinds manually with the standard interface. I turned that off because the idea of having anybody add anything that they wanted, while it's not necessarily a bad thing, I didn't want to make that a casual thing because I thought it would make people confused when they first started using it.
Yeah. Well, my goal before the year is out is to take all the kinds that you've got built in there and start owning the data for all those things. But that's a lot of things to own data on.
Well, I'll get to enhancing all of them because it's very hard to figure out within the context of WordPress post UI actually where to fit all those fields.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
And
not easy.
as much as I don't like it, it may require JavaScript.
Yeah.
Basically just to hide certain things. And some of that's being used to do the tabbing. But I'm talking about something a little more complicated logic-wise.
Yeah. Well, I think I sent you that link to that. I didn't, I need to look into how he's doing it. But there was a guy who'd built a plugin and it was incredible. It's probably one of the slickest UI interfaces I've ever seen on a WordPress plugin. But it was for adding like academic references and footnotes to material, and he used a lot of kind of pop-up modal windows with some fairly complicated setups to lay out all the metadata.
I'm trying to keep it simple, just for the only thing I'm using it for right now is basically to prevent things from becoming too cluttered and to make it so that data will automatically populate.
Yeah. Well, I think and that's not a wholly bad thing either, especially because I think a lot of those post types people will more likely try or would like to use on mobile, or those are the kind of things I would prefer to use on my cell phone. And, doing almost anything with WordPress on a cell phone is just painful. I think there was something I was trying to do yesterday and I accidentally created 50 new. Fortunately, they all showed up as drafts, but I literally had some issue and I had to create almost 40 new posts. And still it wouldn't do the thing I wanted it to do, which was just painful. But I'm glad I didn't spam everybody with 40 new posts and doing it. So
I'm still reminded of the time that I imported my LiveJournal data and accidentally auto-posted it to Facebook one night.
Yeah.
I both deleted it, but it was basically 10-year-old articles that automatically came up.
Yeah, I think I've done that at least once. If I import data like that, I turn off every plugin under the sun because invariably it gets to turn that stuff off.
I learned that the first time.
I don't know. Well, we're sitting at the 6:30 timeline. Has anybody got anything else that questions, comments, snide remarks? Then no, David had a meeting to run off to after this, and it's late on the West Coast, so I need to eat some dinner since we can't all go out to a bar and have our drink after.
Well, if you want, I'll hold up a bag of vacuum sealed shawarma if you want some.
There you go.
I can't deliver.
No, that doesn't help me at all. So, and I'm glad we got our photo out of the way early on, because I think we've lost a couple folks.
Well, this was fun. I think it may be worth doing periodically to attract people who otherwise can't come out physically.
Yeah. And Michael is incredibly good at sitting very still. I thought for the longest time his video had frozen.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
I just like the t-shirt.
Yes, I figured if I couldn't get to an indie web camp or in this last year, I was going to try to represent around town. Tampa has similar problems that, I mean, not on the same scale as like LA, I guess, but we're just so spread out, and there's the body of water in between the Pinellas, St. Petersburg side of the community and the Tampa that it tends to fraction everything. Even like the WordPress community, there's meetups, but they're just spread so far out that I'm not a big drive for an hour for an event unless it's, I just don't like driving across town or across the bay if I don't have to.
Well, how's Indie Web Camp Orlando coming?
What I would love to do one. Definitely would like to put something like that together. I mean, we've chatted about it, and they're really just a matter of finding time and maybe somebody in Orlando who can kind of help coordinate a location.
Are there any big tech companies down there that you can lean on?
I mean, Tampa, there's a Microsoft office. I know that's been used before for some stuff. There's a co-working space downtown that has it, but the Orlando community, I've kind of lost touch. I mean, a few people have moved away from Orlando. I haven't been to any events over there in several years. Used to go for their bar camps before there were events everywhere. There was the bar camp in Orlando was a big thing to do, and before that there was a thing called Blog Orlando that was a really, really cool event, but that's been 8 or 9 years ago since those types of things have gone on. So it's just now it seems like there's events all over the world every day.
Yeah.
But I think Orlando works better than Tampa only because it's very easy to get to.
Sure.
Big airport, lots of inexpensive flights, and Disney World. Can't forget Disney
World. Yeah, no, I would definitely. I mean, if there's more than because I was looking at what's kind of slated for next year, and did I see a DC?
They're trying, and I said I'd come down if they were able to get enough people together.
Yeah, I could try to come up for that. I know there was some discussion of trying to put some indie web camps in conjunction with some of the event aparts, and I know that there's an event apart coming in July, I think, somewhere in that time. So it's summertime, but that might be one way to get more people at an event like that if it was coordinated, like the San Francisco one was. There was a homebrew night that there was some people from the event apart came to or something.
And even further south, if there's anybody in South Florida, I'm down there a couple times a year.
Yeah, are you going to the Miami WordCamp? Are you going to be there for that, or in that area for then?
Not at the moment, but I have no problem getting to that area because I have my grandparents down there. They're always happy to see me. And they have a car that they're not legally allowed to use.
That's crazy.
How far away is that?
How far?
The time when I forget. I think it might be March now.
Well, if I start planning now. The Miami WordCamp, the last one was in February of 2016. The next one, no, that's this year. Next year, March 24th to 26th.
Yeah. I see it now. That would be very doable for me.
And I don't think we've ever tried an indie web camp attached to a WordCamp, which would be particularly interesting.
Yeah.
Well, where would you attach it on? That's the trouble.
Attached is in the vicinity of.
At the yeah.
Either as a mini event or like the day after.
Or the day before, maybe, if you did it on a Friday.
Well, the 24th to the 26th. What day of the week is that?
26th of the Monday is what I'm. I'm looking at this year. Never mind. Sorry.
No, it's a Friday through a Sunday.
And I think the Friday event
is usually Contributors Day.
Is it? Oh, they're doing Contributors Day on Friday, because I know in the past Contributors Day was usually on Sundays. I'll reach out to
I'm not sure because
David and find out, because he might be able to help just kind of with a general a location. I mean, he's got his hands full organizing WordCamp Miami, but he might be able to like recommend something.
Oh, and by the way, I just checked. In 2016, Friday was the pre-conference.
Yeah, I know. Like the year that I went, the Friday was like a beginners class. They had somebody teaching for.
Yeah,
like,
they had beginners
they had tied in with
101.
University of Miami, so they did a beginners day.
That's basically what this is. Beginners Day, Freelancers Workshop, and Buddy Camp was what they did this year.
So that would be
That's
ideal.
not a bad idea. Yeah, you could do an indie web camp for the slightly more advanced group that aren't in the beginners setup.
I'm saying that would be interesting. Have it on the same day as their pre-events.
Yeah, no, I think that would be. I'm game to start planning that, and I'll reach out to David and see if he's got any suggestions on locations, or if there might be space where they're doing it that we could kind of tag in on.
We have plenty of time this time, so that should work out.
And Marty just showed up, so we could start planning Indie Webcam Baltimore.
Yeah, it's got to happen sometime.
I have a couple friends at Johns Hopkins, and I'm sure we can get them to give us some space.
That'd be cool. The space we met at tonight is Digital Harbor Foundation, and it would actually hold a good number of people. They've had meetings there, like 60, 80 people. There's a lot of tables, easily reconfigured, good internet, projector setup, breakout spaces.
And it's easy for me to come down from New York to the Washington and Baltimore area. So I have no problem coming down for a day or two.
Nice. Yeah, it's a short free bus ride from Penn Station. So if you take the train down, it's easy to get down to the location.
That's Penn Station, Baltimore, I assume.
That's right. Yeah, we have a Penn Station too.
Yeah, I know. I've just wanted to point out there are a few of those, and people tend to get confused.
It's a good point. I forget that sometimes.
I gotta run, everybody. Bye.
All
All right, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I gotta go in a few minutes. Too, but,
Do
So
we
should
want
we
to
do
stop
this?
the recording?
should we do this once a month?
I would gladly, as long as I'm available the night that it falls on, which I usually am. I would love to do this once a month. I think it at least gets a nice conversation.
Well, and I think there's enough people who are like Michael, who are, stuck out in places where there's only, one or two people potentially that, may help get a few more off the ground.
Let's basically come see what it's like. Bring one in your own community.
Exactly. Or until you can sucker, your other best friend into joining you every couple of weeks.
Well, I will, if we pick a date, I will be here for it as long as I possibly can.
Likewise.
Sounds good. I mean, I can always try and show up too, but I'm going to try and go back to being LA every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, twice a month, whatever. So,
Yeah. But either way, we'll figure it out.
exactly.
And
Excellent.
there's nothing that says you can't broadcast from a venue like the Baltimore contingent did and actually have a feed coming on them.
How did that actually come about?
They came on when I turned on the Hangout and were there, and I basically was sitting there listening to their conversation.
Oh, okay. No, that's actually pretty smart.
So there's nothing that says we can't have every venue have a microphone and people could watch no matter where they happen to be.
Yeah, that's not a bad. In fact, I kind of thought of that when I saw Europe start up this morning. Since there's so many meetings across the world, you just have an ongoing stream the whole day.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be nice.
You see 6 different meetups in the span of 8 hours.
And have a recording of each of them. So if you missed them, you could watch it later and feel as if you were there.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how many people are going to do that. Marty's definitely going to go back and rewatch this to see what he missed in the last half an hour.
Yeah, I miss a lot. Well, and it is kind of tough to tune into the virtual side of it from a venue where there are multiple people, because we're having side conversations and we muted ourselves so we weren't interrupting the folks online. But I heard y'all talking about lots of stuff. And I'm like, oh wait, I have opinions. I'm excited about this, so I'm gonna have to go back and re-listen to it.
Oh, and I should hold up this thing for you, by the way.
Oh, hey, nice.
Is that the new 360 camera?
I know this is, well, new to me.
Eh.
This was the El Cheapo 360-degree camera.
Yeah. Well, the other drawback too to doing this in a virtual sense too is that concept of side conversations at the tail end is you got 5 or 6 people all have to kind of have everybody else's side conversation along for the ride, rather than being able to break up into smaller 1s and 2s.
Yeah, as I said, I think it's a measure for people who haven't been able to get a critical mass physically.
Yeah.
I want to try to build to it, or at least participate one way or the other.
But I have to say, it actually worked out, better than I expected it was going to. So
That's rather cynical.
well, I had some
thought this event was going to fail.
I had some high expectations too on top of it, but invariably technical problems always pop up, and
And if we do this regularly, I'm going to fix the positioning of that camera.
Okay. Yeah, that way you're not way off to the left.
Well, let me see if I can. You want to see where the camera's actually been?
Wow, look at that setup.
That's what I've been talking into.
Fancy.
And of course, there's that crazy thing.
Sweet rig.
Is that your? I like that you've got Dublin there.
That they were throwing it out. The clock was broken.
I knew where you got it.
Yeah, the clocks were broken, and I basically bought new movements and replaced it, so it technically works now. Although it keeps losing time on me, and I think I lost a battery.
Oops.
Crazy.
All the craziness of this room.
So you got a nice microphone set up there too. Does that mean you're going to start the IndieWeb podcast?
Oh, I use this for a podcast. That's why I have the audio set up. If you look where the laptop is that this is broadcasting on, this is what's below it.
Oh yeah.
So what's the podcast? I didn't know you had a podcast on the side.
It's one I've been doing on and off for years, where I just sit around and talk about Android phones.
Ah.
So basically, it's just whatever happened this week, we randomly talk about it, talk about a bunch of other random things, and post a copy of the conversation.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for the tour. I gotta run and grab a few things, and I know you got a conference call here in a bit.
I actually have the recording of said podcast.
Nice.
Oh, is that what it? Okay.
Well, cheers, guys. Thanks for putting this together, and I look forward to picking a date for next month.
Sounds good. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah, thanks for organizing, guys.
Yeah,
See y'all soon.
All right. Night, guys.
Night.